Listen. 97.2 FM.
Radio Reverb.
So hello everybody, and it's great to be back. This week I am interviewing Eugene Lynch. Now Eugene has a company called Eugenes Lab, and we're going to talk a bit about that and a bit about positive voices, which is something else that both Eugene and I are involved in. So welcome to the HIV Hour, Eugene.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
You're very welcome. So Eugene, you have a company called Eugenes Lab. Eugenes Lab produces premium hand sanitizer, organic liquid hand soap, vegan lip balm, to name a few things. Could you tell us where the idea of what the background of the company is and why you did what you did?
Sure. It's something that really, I guess, came out of the pandemic in many ways. Mm-hmm. It was about a year ago, sort of February, March 2020, when I realized that hand sanitizer was going to run out pretty quickly, and I tried to go about finding out how to make some of my own. And I was at a point where I'd had issues in the past with addiction and alcoholism, and I didn't want something that smelled really strongly of alcohol. Yeah. So I developed a hand sanitizer that was both safe and effective, so above 70% alcohol, but also smelled quite nice. And that was kind of my aim. And initially, I provided that to local charities that were doing kind of deliveries to old people and that sort of thing during the first lockdown. And people really liked it. So I thought, well, I could develop this into a business. And that's kind of where it all started.
Okay. So, I mentioned a couple of the products that you make. Something that everybody, unless you're living under a rock, you will know what La is all about. And La is, if you don't know, it's the phrase that was used in It's a Sin, and it was the gang from the Pink Palace. They said La when they were saying hello. They said La when they were saying goodbye. It was a kind of greeting between these group of friends. And the Mayor of Lambeth, Philip Normal, produced a T-shirt with the La slogan on it. And a portion of that money goes to the Terrence Higgins Trust. Now, somebody else has now produced a candle with the La slogan on it, and that is you, Eugenes Lab. So, Eugene, tell us, why did you feel that it was important to do this?
I've been working on scented candles for a couple of years, actually, and people, when they kind of smelled the hand sanitizer I was making, said things like, this would be good as a room spray or as a candle. So I started developing it into a candle a while ago. And when the opportunity came up to kind of produce a La product, I jumped at it because I was really inspired by Philip Normal's T-shirt. I've got two of them, and I bought one of his tote bags. I think they're fantastic. And I thought, well, how can I do something that helps the Terrence Higgins Trust, which is an organisation that's helped me in the past personally, and an organisation that I've been doing some fundraising for a couple of years now. Anyone who's gone along to the Terrence Higgins Trust Eurovision quiz will have answered the questions that I put together for that before. And, I've done a few things like that. And I thought, well, this would be a good way of bringing together the kind of fundraising for THT and the whole kind of La phenomenon, and also what I'm doing in terms of my business as well. It's a great way of giving back to an organisation that really helps people.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it, how the La thing has become a complete phenomenon.
No, absolutely. And, what Philip Normal has done is absolutely fantastic in terms of just the amount of money he's raised, but also, he runs a small business. Getting the number of orders he did in the amount of time he did must have sent his stress levels through the roof, and he's managed to develop, along with some help, the capacity to be able to deliver thousands of T-shirts every week. So, I'm totally in awe of what he's been able to do. Fortunately, I've had a very manageable number of orders so far for candles, and I've got a bit of a stock built up now. So, I'm able to get those into the post when people order them. But yeah, what Philip has done, both in terms of the amount of money raised and just logistically, is really, really impressive.
Yeah, it's great to see these T-shirts and the bags all over social media. Yeah, it's just really good to see. So you mentioned Terrence Higgins Trust, Eugene, and you something that both Eugene and I are connected with the Terrence Higgins Trust is the Positive Voices project. Now, a lot of people might not know about the Positive Voices, so could you tell us what it is?
Sure. So Positive Voices is a group of volunteer speakers who go and speak to groups like schools, like businesses that have, a meeting or something like that, and other organizations like healthcare organizations and others, and basically tell their story of living with HIV in their own words. So there's an element of every Positive Voices talk where we talk about, the statistics and the facts and figures about living with HIV in the UK today. But the thing that really kind of resonates with people is hearing people's individual stories. And a lot of our stories, unfortunately, in many ways, involve a lot of stigma, whether that's, stigma people experience externally from others or self-stigma. And one of the things that the Terrence Higgins Trust is trying to do, and also the government has signed up to, is this idea of eliminating HIV transmission from person to person by 2030. But we're also trying to eliminate HIV stigma. And Positive Voices is a really good way of getting people to understand what the issues are around the stigma associated with HIV, and then, through that kind of understanding, tackling that stigma. So it's something that I signed up for about 6 months ago at this point. I started speaking towards the end of last year, and when the opportunity came up to actually take a role as a member of staff, I jumped at it. Unfortunately, I started that job at the end of January. So I've been in the job as Senior Positive Voices Coordinator for the Terrence Higgins Trust. It's a 3 days a week job for about the last kind of 6 weeks or so.
Right. So I think, speaking from my own experience of doing YouTube and talking about living with HIV, and having had my one-man show in New York, the power of somebody's story is unbelievable. It really, the way that it can touch people and the way that it can affect people is a real. It's a real gift to be able to do that for somebody. And I think with Positive Voices, it's another way of doing that, isn't it? It's another way of saying, look, I'm here and I'm standing in front of you and I've got HIV and I'm not any different, So I think there's a real power in our stories, isn't there?
Absolutely. I think there's a real powerful message that comes from each of the volunteers' stories, and each one is different, but there are themes I think you can pick out from quite a few people's stories. And I can certainly speak from my own experience. If I go back 2.5 years, there were probably, I could count on the fingers of one hand how many people I had disclosed my HIV status to. And for me, this time about 2.5 years ago, I was in a very dark place. I was quite isolated. I was in a job that I, wasn't able to go to anymore. I was anxious. I was having panic attacks. I was taking a lot of drugs, drinking a lot, trying to deal with all of that anxiety. And for me, it's been a huge transformation from then. I initially contacted the Terrence Higgins Trust for counselling and support. I ended up getting into treatment for addiction and that sort of thing. And I'm now in a position where I'm able to kind of give back and work with the charity. But, going in 2.5 years from, not wanting to tell anyone about my status and trying to keep it a secret, and now sort of almost singing from the rooftops about living with HIV and what it means to people, and hearing the stories of some like really interesting, volunteers. It's a real privilege and a real gift to be able to hear that. And when we see from the feedback we get from audiences, when they hear the personal stories of people and their experience of HIV stigma, it really is eye-opening for people. And it really helps to break down a lot of those barriers.
Yeah.
It helps both the person who's listening to the story and, in my experience, also the person who's telling it. The power of it is massive.
Yeah, I can see that definitely. Now, Positive Voices before us has had a lot of wonderful volunteers who have come in and told their stories, and currently has a lot of wonderful speakers. But we are looking, aren't we? At what more we can do. What more Positive Voices can be. Well, I know it's very early stages at the moment, Eugene, but could you tell us a bit about what we're thinking about in that sense?
Sure, yeah. So my role is it's both part-time and fixed term, as in I'm going to be in the role for about a year or so in the current round of funding and that sort of thing. And my role is really about how do we transform Positive Voices so that it delivers what it is our speakers want, but also what the organisation, Terrence Higgins Trust, wants to bring to people. And there's a lot of all of this is volunteer-led and volunteer-driven. So our speakers have been really, really great at engaging with where they want to take things next. And we're developing it along certain themes. And one of the themes that emerged quite early on, and we've already done some development around, is kind of frontline health and care experiences. And we want to be able to go to people who work in frontline health and care jobs and say that, various different people in our group, various different volunteers have had experiences that are, let's say, less than ideal when they've been, going for, let's say, dentistry or going for surgery or something like that. And they have like individual stories of poor experiences when disclosing their HIV status and things that shouldn't happen. Have happened. And so what we want to do is be able to go to people who might be on the receiving end of one of those disclosures and be able to say to them, well, this is how, this is what you need to know. And this is how you could have a conversation around this in a way that is both, sensitive to the person and also, you're equipped to know everything that you need to know in that kind of scenario. It's relatively straightforward to get it right, but once you get it wrong, it can have devastating effects on an individual. And our speakers who have stories of when it goes wrong, have some really powerful examples of why it's so important to get those kinds of interactions right. If anybody wants to know more about Positive Voices, is the information on the Terrence Higgins website? Yeah, probably the easiest way to find it is if you Google Terrence Higgins Trust Positive Voices, but it's tht.org.uk/Positive Voices. We've got a contact form there if anybody wants to get in touch. I think there's an email address on that webpage as well that you can message and it comes straight through to us. If people have any questions or they want to book a talk or anything like that, they can get in touch with us via that form.
Great. And you might see you and me doing the talk, mightn't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That could be one of us.
Yeah. And lastly, if anybody wants to get one of the La candles, Eugene, could you tell us where they can get them from?
Sure, yeah. If you go to eugeneslab.com, so Eugenes Lab, all one word, .com, you'll basically get a pop-up and the candles will be the first thing you see.
Great. And I understand that they're limited edition. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm making 100 of each of the fragrances, and once they're gone, they're gone. So get in quickly.
So you heard it from the boss himself. Once they're gone, they're gone. So so get in there and get your La candles, and again, a portion of the funds from that will go to Terrence Higgins Trust. So thank you so much for doing this, Eugene. It's been really interesting to talk to you, and I know our viewers will they have either something to think about with Positive Voices or with getting some of your products. So thank you very much for coming onto the HIV Hour.
Thanks so much.